Hello and welcome back to Module 3. This is the ALPS demo of this course.
Creating virtual reality and augmented reality applications on the Windows platform.
Well said. Okay, so as we said, we're just gonna use the ALPS VR SDK, and we're going to show you how to use it in inside Unity.
Cool. Just like the previous one, it's sort of let's figure out how to use an SDK now rather than try and do all that ourselves, and we'll get some free features as part of that. So ALPS VR is open source, which is nice. We like open source. You can pick up a copy of it at aka.ms/msalpsvr, and that's got all the bindings in for Windows Phone and those nice sensors we talked about earlier. So earlier when we were enthusing about all the sensor combinations and orientation sensor and everything like that, all of that's built in and done for you. You can just go to the website and download it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You go and have a look and see how the barrel distortion is done if you're interested in that. I guess there's multiple ways to do that.
Yeah, so there's some good code examples in there, and they've also got a Unity package which you can just go geek and then just drop the stuff in. So if you're super lazy or you just want to get into doing some actual game design, very simple.
Well, to be honest, I'm pretty lazy.
Yeah, I'm lazy.
I'm going to now do that. So.
So it's got some nice stuff that comes with it. So like we talked about earlier when we talked theoretical, barrel distortion correction, very important, makes the thing look nicer. The head tracking looks really nice, so they actually have some compensation, drift compensation, so it's more than just reading the gyro values. And they've got some kind of nice game design tools in there, so there's a thing where you can tilt your head forward like that. It'll detect that that's happening and your character will start to walk, so you can actually start to navigate around these.
Yeah, and we'll touch on that a bit later on when we talk about VR design, right?
Yes.
And moving about a scene.
Yes, indeed. And then, they do some chromatic aberration correction as well, so it's all the good stuff.
Yep, so shall we start the demo?
Away with this.
Let's see how it works. So I'm just going to, again, switch over to Unity. Okay, so now we're back in Unity, and I'm going to come in here and create a new project. And we're going to show how to use the ALPS VR package. Yep. So let's call this one MVA ALPS. And create project. Oh, we've already got one of those.
It's a popular name.
ALPS 2. Now let's call it ALPS VR like that. Haven't done that before. Okay, so a clean slate here. Let's bring in the scene that we used before for the original example. We'll bring that again. So import custom package, and there it is.
We're going to use that piece of art for every one of them, so you've got something to contrast each toolkit against, so you've got kind of a common control experiment, as they'd say in the scientific world. So
I'll just drag the prefab out there into the scene, and there you go, it's a familiar scene.
Art's for free.
Let's just rejig this a little bit, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the ALPS Unity package. So same thing, import package, custom package. And I've got it in this ALPS folder here on my local disk, so I'm just going to import that in. And that's going to bring in all the scripts that enable me to do all the clever things like barrel distortion, correction, and head tracking. And if I dive down into the, oops, that's the wrong one, into the ALPS package here, I can find the prefabs folder, and inside there I've got an ALPS camera.
So that being a prefab, it's going to unpack and do all of the kind of complicated setup that we were doing before when we were positioning cameras and adding stuff like that. So
yeah, I'm going to drop that into the scene, and I'll delete the old camera that we don't need. Notice we're not really eye level here.
Yes.
So let's fix that up. I think you mentioned it was 1.9, wasn't it, in Y?
1.9 is good. I mean, it's not actually super important that it's accurate, but somewhere around human height in meters.
Yeah. Well, we'll stick to the same thing as we used that in the last demo. So. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the. Well, first, what I'll do actually is I'll play this in the Unity editor, so we can see what it looks like. You can see we're getting preview down at the bottom there.
We've got that rather nice sort of side by side. It looks like the kind of the demo that we created, but we haven't had to cut any code, and it's just a couple of seconds to deploy. Yeah,
and now if you look to the inspector on the right, we can start to kind of tweak some of the settings in there.
Yeah.
So let's find the most interesting ones. So. For starters, I can change the device.
Yes.
And I've got a few options in here, alter gaze, cardboard or firefly. I'm just going to choose cardboard for this.
Yep.
And notice immediately that we've got this kind of barrel distortion correction going on in here.
That's kind of what we talked about earlier. So this is the inverse noise of the pincushion distortion for the lenses. So, this is what it looks like when we render it to the screen.
Yeah, it's not actually, oh, it is moving the screen. I just had to click back on it. So let's just have a look around and see how that feels.
So you can see how it's bending towards the edges.
So I've just moved in space. That wasn't very helpful. Let me just start that again.
We can move anywhere in time and space with this demo.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is whilst we're viewing that,
Yep.
I'm going to change some of the parameters on here. So let's click on barrel distortion.
And so the K1 and K2 values are quite interesting. This is basically, K1 is how round and bulbous is the middle of the lens.
Yeah, and look, you can see that whilst
edges.
I'm editing it. You can see what's happening there.
And interestingly, if you set that to a minus value, you'll actually see pincushion distortion, which is what we talked about earlier.
There we
so,
go.
if you didn't have any lens correction on your device, when you actually look in the headset, that's the kind of thing you see, this very sort of stretched around the edge but sharp in the middle.
Yeah,
so
it's quite nice to be able to see it there, just whilst I'm dragging the slider, so we really understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Let's try K2 and see what that does.
So you'll see K2 is kind of the roundness of the edges. So you've got kind of the internal and the external radius. And you can set the kind of crazy values. So yeah.
Set that back to cardboard. I think it didn't pick up that change that I made. So I can switch on a crosshair, which just shows you where you're looking. It's in the center of the screen. And I can kind of play with this chromatic correction. Will we be able to see anything change?
This is fun. Yeah, turn that up really high and you'll actually see the colours start drifting around the edge.
I can see them starting to separate already, actually. Let's push it further.
So you can see how towards the edge of the disc, as it's called, the colours start to separate into red and green. And what's really cool about that is that's what you get from the lenses. So obviously we calibrate it so we're seeing the opposite, which is quite fun.
Okay, so there's some other settings in there that we're going to look at in a later module.
Yes.
But for now, that's pretty much the ALPS demo.
Yep. It's cool because there's quite a lot of complicated science that's going on in there, and the toolkit just takes all that off you and just says, right, here's the basic numbers, fiddle around, enjoy. So short and sweet.
That brings us to the end of the module. Very short and sweet. That goes to show how easy it is to use some of these SDKs. It's just literally dragging.
Golden rule: use the SDK. So in the next module, we're going to be covering how you use the VISR SDK to do kind of similar work and some of the interesting things we've added. So hopefully you can get to work building virtual worlds. So thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next module.
See you in the next module.